Hey everyone, I've got a really interesting story today. This time coming out of the MRC Laboratory of Molecular Biology in Cambridge. A scientist by the name of Vitor Pinheiro, I hope I got that right, has actually made an incredible new discovery with his team of formulating synthetic genetic polymers. Now, a genetic polymer is just a way of describing DNA and RNA. DNA, I'm sure you all know, and maybe a few of you even know, RNA is what makes us what we are. Not just us, of course. All life on Earth has some form of DNA or RNA, or more likely both, inside of it. It's what holds our genetic information, basically the instructions on how to build a human or a banana or anything else in the world. And ensures that that information can be passed from one generation to the next, and more importantly, that that information can change itself or modify itself so that life can continue in the face of mounting evolutionary pressures. It's the very selective forces that require evolution for life to continue in the lovely ways it does. What Mr. Pinheiro has found or crafted, I should say, are six different synthetic genetic polymers called XNAs, which sounds kind of cool. But what they do is they are not like DNA and RNA chemically, but what they can do is store and also transmit information from one to the other. Initially, we thought only DNA or RNA could do it. They were Goldilocks polymers, which is just a fancy way of saying that they have to work under certain conditions. Much like the Goldilocks story, she doesn't want things too hot or too cold. They have to be just right. So the only thing we can really do is transmit information through DNA and RNA in just the right conditions. But what this finding has shown that these other polymers, genetic polymers, are just as capable of storing and transmitting information, and that DNA and RNA aren't necessarily the Goldilocks polymers we thought they were. Of course, this has huge implications on how we see or understanding of life in the universe, and there's a great quote from Gerald Joyce of the Scripps Research Institute, and I'll let him say it.
The work heralds the era of synthetic genetics with implications for exobiology, life elsewhere in the universe, biotechnology, and understanding of life itself.
Now, what this finding describes about life in the universe is pretty impressive. It shows that life could be made of stuff we haven't even realized it could be made of. And it shows that the way we conceive of life on Earth may be completely different in the universe. Yet, even if that were the case, life would still operate based on the principles of evolution, which I suppose it's a bit redundant at this point to say it's another sign of evidence for the existence of the theory of evolution. And I know a lot of people like to say it's just a theory, but it's actually one of the most robust theories we have. It's even more robust than gravity. We have way more evidence for evolution than our current model of gravity, which is it's sort of thrown through a bit of a loop when you consider things like dark matter, black holes, gravity. It's a little shaky. But evolution, I mean, we've just shown that you don't even need DNA or RNA necessarily for evolution. So a big plus one to evolution for this one. It should be mentioned, though, that Mr. Pinheiro's synthetic polymers do still require DNA as sort of a middleman. So you've got an XNA here, XNA there, and as they transmit information, they need a DNA go-between. That being said, it's totally reasonable that they'll eventually be able to remove that DNA middleman entirely. There are some health and safety risks. People worried maybe XNA will get out of control and, I don't know, take over the world in a few 100 million years, as it would require to create something big enough to throw us over. or it could even create bacteria that could kill us, and it's very resilient, which is scary. Um, those are all important concerns. I'm just sort of throwing them out there as kind of extreme examples. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. Uh, but yeah, it's a concern, and this is a development we should all be watching very carefully because as our definition of what life could be changes, so does our perception of life within the universe and our own role in it. And I hope you learned something interesting today. Thanks for watching. Love Science.